thank you very much for tuning in and watching this week's video, which is basically I'm going to go through some highlights of the latest adventure that we've been on. We run retreats under the banner of Enchanted Lands. These first began by me channeling Seraphina, who asked of us to kind of like put out a soul call. So it's soul family, soul language really. And the soul call is all about coming together, traveling to different places, looking at different landscapes in the outer world to enable us to have a different perspective internally and to raise our vibrations into a unity consciousness. So Enchanted Lands is we often call it like a heaven on earth type of idea. And we have a lot of fun saying that we're a love virus and we go around the planet basically looking at ways of retaining and building and empowering ourselves in a loving vibration. And we sincerely hope that by visiting these places we also leave the place in a better vibrational state than we find it, because many of our soul family are natural healers, as I'm sure you are when you're watching this, and you know, by thinking raising the vibration of our thoughts and thinking better thoughts, we're obviously going to leave lighter footprints on this beautiful planet Earth that we're sharing. So that's a brief synopsis, but basically you can follow the link above, which basically will take you to my website, which has got a much bigger explanation of what the Enchanted Lands series is. And we go on about 3 or 4 a year. And actually, we're in 2019 now, and we've just finished off this year with this one I'm going to share with you now. And next year, February, we're going to go on an adventure to Cambodia and Vietnam and the Temples of Light. June will be in Ireland for 5 days in the Ring of Kerry and Skellig Islands. And then we complete this whole 4-year program in Canada in September. So something to look out for if you're interested. Again, all the details are on the website, so I won't take your time up here for that. So we've just been on an amazing adventure, just an amazing adventure. Earlier this year, we went to Maui in February to listen to the song of the humpback whales. We followed that directive from Seraphina and we had an amazing time. And if you're interested, there is another video which is similar to this one, where you'll definitely need a cup of tea or wine or whatever it is that floats your boat as we take you on this journey. The reason why I'm actually offering this is we have many people who sign up as satellites to our adventures. This is where for a nominal fee you get to basically you know, we try to do some WhatsApp lives while we're out there, and we try to definitely pull some oracle cards along the way for further signs and processing of what we're experiencing. So it's inclusive of the satellites as much as we possibly can. And that means that you can be anywhere in the world, and we try to make you inclusive on our travels as much as we can. So yeah, this is a further sort of depth offering for that, and also for all those people who feel these soul calls that I put out purposefully, willingly and intentionally, and feel that soul call, but for some reason the mind gets involved and some blockages come up to prevent the physical attendance. Okay, so we'll trust that everything's in perfect divine timing, and that if you're meant to be there through by hook or by crook, you actually come on board with us. And it's just stunning experiences, and thank you so much for coming with me on these madcap adventures and making the most of it whilst we go. Okay, so for this one, Seraphina said a long time ago, actually, she was talking about going to Mexico and going to Sedona. That's how actually this all started off. And then when I sat with it in deep meditation for the linking in and for actually getting the details, she kept showing me it was layer upon layer upon layer. And after much research, it ended up being that we needed to go into the sacred lands, really, of the tribes, the ancient ones of the Four Corners route, of the Grand Circle, if you like, of Arizona and Utah and New Mexico, and all those wonderful, amazing desert landscapes, to immerse ourselves into the cultures of the peoples. So we decided we were going to travel with the Navajo, and we asked for assistance and an invitation from them to go on their reservation land, and also with the Hopi, before eventually going into Sedona. And what this became over time in the planning was that it was quite obvious that we needed to go through certain gateways. We needed to go through some gateways, and I'd really like to introduce you to the idea of gateways, because, you know, we have them physically on the planet all of the time. Your door to your front door, back door, side door are gateways. Gateways are also like gates, literally, in a hedgerow or in a fence or whatever it happens to be. So we've got these physical representations where we're asked to actually pause before we enter. So on a spiritual, etherical meaning of a gateway is, it's a chance to just stop what you're doing. Give yourself time to take a breath, to align with all that is, to the divine being that you are, ground your energies into the earth, and ask permission to enter here. So our gateways on this amazing journey happen to be the canyons. So it kind of makes sense, really, because the canyon walls are very strong, they're very high, and they're very, very deep. So we were definitely traveling to the heights that we could be and the depths of our being. So a real good chance to anchor in some of this loving light that we travel with all of the time. So amazing to do so. So we had various gateways that we knew that we would be entering into, and some that just arrived that we didn't even pre-plan. We also had experiences with portals of energy, which I'll explain a little bit more about later. And all of this was really in grateful appreciation and a pilgrimage, really, of love and light to get to Sedona, which is well known for its vortexes. And some people can feel that, some people can't. And it's going to be my pleasure to take you through some of those experiences we had too. So without further ado, we'll actually go on through this. So, you know, if you've chosen to watch this, there'll be a reason. There's always a reason why we get attracted to certain things, or we get curious, or we're inquisitive about it. So yeah, sort of go along with as much of this that feels right, and things that you perhaps aren't ready to understand yet, or don't agree with, or whatever else that happens for you, then just let it go. Just let it pop into your aura. If it's ever right for you, it's just kind of, you know, it's just filed away there in your existence and your knowing. And if it's ever useful, it'll come back to you and you can have a good look at it then. Okay, so we basically set off from the UK and we arrived in Phoenix, and even that I thought was really funny. I'd never been before to this part of the world. My only sort of experience previously was basically flying out from Las Vegas to have a moment in the Grand Canyon, which was totally and utterly awesome. But this was something totally and utterly different. We partnered up with a company called Detours of Arizona, who are brilliant. And we originally started conversations with a Navajo gentleman called Donovan Hanley. Donovan is really, really wonderful, and he's one to look out for. He does have a public Instagram, so Donovan Hanley, you can look him up later. There's photographs and stuff which we'll introduce you to. So thank you, Donovan, for our initial chats and conversations which anchored in this whole program. Things changed in his life and he was unable to accompany us for the journey, and wonderful Michael stepped in big time, and we had such fun and such a great time with Michael. Michael, thank you so much for all that you are and all that you did. He man of many gifts, really, but he had great knowledge. He was our driver as well, and he filled in that gap provided. And you know, when change like that happens, I think sometimes you just got to go with it, because there's always treasures there. And it really, really felt right. And we were very lucky to have the whole tour the way it turned out. So thank you, Michael, for being open-minded enough with our group and for going off piste and doing all the things that we actually did, which was fantastic, including obviously meeting Donovan later in the journey. Okay, so we landed in Phoenix. Well, Phoenix, therefore, meaning of a beautiful mythical bird, of, you know, going down to the ashes and then rising from the ashes renewed. So as we were immersing ourselves into the folklore and the history of Native American and previous ancestral energies before that, we were very much in with the animal kingdom. We were looking for signs, and we were quite happy to take those as they came. So it just made me giggle that we were actually arriving in Sky Harbor Airport, which I thought was a great name, and in Phoenix. So we ended up staying and starting our stay and settled in a beautiful hotel in Scottsdale. Scottsdale's a nice area, I thought, and had lots of like fountains and places to just relax out in, swimming pools. And the wildlife was new to us. This bird was new to me. This is our group. We started off after we'd had a lovely gentle night. Very wonderful accommodations. The people were fantastic. And we had a gathering in the reception area of the hotel. So we opened up our retreat here, and we set our intentions of love and light, of going along during this whole process where, and in fact, you can set this intention for yourself now if you wish, because as we take you through this journey, it may well happen to you too. And this is where we were going to be gathering and receiving energy from Mother Earth, of any of the past lives that we had lived in this part of the world, for any of those beautiful moments of wisdom or energies that we needed to recollect, to reawaken to, for our pathway of unity, for us to easily assimilate them. So you could have that intention. We also had the intention that as we drove around, because it was about 1,500 miles, we would be spreading this intentional love and light every single mile upon mile upon mile. We had the intention that everybody we met, we would share a loving intent, and we would come away with wisdom, and we would exchange that for wisdom. And the intent really of unity, of uniting as one planet, as one soul family. So off we went. You might try those intentions before we go through. This is just somewhere after we'd set our wonderful circle and we'd actually experienced our prayers and our intentions as we went through. And we had a chat about what people's expectations were and how we were going to meet those. And we just popped outside, and there was this very welcome flow of water. So remember, we're in desert and we'd entered 44 degrees. I'm a water person, really, so I love water. But it was a very bright full moon, and we had lots of little pools that were lit up at night. One of which was this one that we went to have a nice evening swim in. And there was lots of, you can see lots of fountains there. And Nick's my husband, and he thought it was absolutely hilarious as I was doing backstroke. I was going into the it's again splattered, which was fantastic. I thought it was fun. So the very next morning, Michael came to pick us up at 6 a.m. and he bought us our chariot for the time we were going to be together, which was a very comfortable van with big captain chairs and great air conditioning that actually worked, which was superb. And it was lovely, really, because he brought some sage out, and the first thing he did was to smudge us. He smudged the whole circle of all the people. He smudged his vehicle. So he was using one of the traditions of the peoples of the land. Sage is antibacterial. It cleanses the air. They've done that from a research point of view. It grows in abundance just on the plains that we passed of the desert land. There's plenty of it around, and white sage is known throughout many of the tribes of the world as a way to cleanse your aura. It's a way to actually get rid of lower negative energies. It's often used to get rid of any lower entities and to raise their vibration, but it's also antibacterial too, so it's a real big win-win. So I thought that was wonderful, and we were very grateful to go into ceremony straight away. And the first place, we had quite a long drive and lots to go through on the first day to arrive at the Navajo reservation land. So Michael took us on some fun routes to explore and just to settle in, really. So I'll just take you through briefly some of these photographs. So the first one was the Sonoran Desert. So as soon as you're basically out of Phoenix, you're into the Sonoran Desert. Sonoran Desert is full of cacti. And this is so different. So there's our group again. And you can see the beautiful shapes it has. And Michael had lots and lots of information about these. And some of these limbs, they don't grow for like 10 years, and yet they can take on a huge amount of water in a very short period of time. There's, I think that the Phoenix or Arizona emblem is the white flower that blooms from the ends of these arms of the cacti, and they just bloom like a month a year. And there's one particular very small bat that goes around and pollinates them. This is prickly pear. That's Michael. But they were enormous and just fantastic and very, very new to us. I particularly like this photograph because I don't know if you can see it, but there's a heart on the side of the mountain. That's our chariot. That's a very happy me. I was just really happy to be in the sunshine, in the land. It had all come together so well, and we were happy to move forward. As we were driving along, in fact, Michael had talked about looking out for signs, looking out for different, he was an expert not just in the history of the native people, but in geology and geography and animals and various things that were there. And we happened literally a few minutes into the first town that we came across, we saw a huge gathering of turkey buzzards. So of course we looked up what that actually meant. And I've got it over here, so I'm going to have to check my notes on this. And it's to do with wisdom and understanding arising from your experiences. So I thought that was amazing. Like within the first hour of us leaving Phoenix, and our intention that we'd set in our circle, that we would get confirmation from the animal kingdom that talks about the wisdom and understanding from our experience. So we gratefully received that. Nick and I were fascinated with the long, straight roads through the deserts, and this is one example of them. So our first breakfast stop is Route 66. So very iconic in America, very famous. It's a really, really, really long road. It's just less than 4,000 kilometers long. Is it kilometers or miles? Again, let me just check my notes so I can be a little bit more accurate for you. I wrote these earlier. Yeah, kilometers. So it's actually 3,940 kilometers long, and going from Arizona to Missouri. And apparently it was completed in November 11th, 1926. And its other name, as well as being called Route 66 or Will Rogers Road, it is also called the Mother's Road. The Mother's Road. And it's the original highway through America, an all-weather highway through America. Because I was like, I'd heard of it and I knew about it, but I didn't understand the history. So I thought I'd just fill you in there. So here we are on Route 66. That's what that looks like. And then we were booked in for breakfast at La Posada Hotel, which again is a really well-known place. And the turquoise room is very, very famous. There's lots and lots and lots of famous people who stayed there. And we were really quite happy to pop in there for breakfast. This is us having a great breakfast of local traditional food in the turquoise room. It was lovely as far as stained glass goes and lots of different lights. And, you know, even the wash hand basins and things were tiled with beautiful, colourful mosaics. And this is some of the famous people who'd actually stayed there. So we had a good wander through the hotel, had a great shop. But, you know, you might think, what on earth have you taken here, Carol? But while we were sitting having breakfast, we kept seeing these trains trundle by, and they were doing it really, really quietly, not like our trains that we know, and or that I know. Sorry. And so we went outside Nick took these because it was a mile long. It was a mile long, and they were just peacefully and gently trundling through. So we had various stop-offs before we got to our lodge on the Navajo reservation land later that day. And one of them was this like really weird place where weird to me, they'd sort of made lots of like teepees, but they felt like concrete, but they were like sort of bed and breakfast that you could stay the night, and it was full of really ancient old rusty cars. But this photograph with me and my friend little Carol it's petrified wood. Look at the size of it. So this is from the Jurassic period. So here we were, fully immersed in different parts of nature and ancestry and history. So yeah, so there's like a little motel bit you could stay in. And these cars we weren't allowed into. You see me trying to open the door of one of them. I really wanted to sit in that. This is my favourite one. It just reminds me of gangster movies. And you can see a tree made of petrified wood, which was absolutely amazing. Gives you a link into where we were heading. So a national park, oh my God, so large. We were absolutely intrigued about what it would look like to enter a petrified wood forest. And we definitely thought we'd share this one with you. So here it is. There was loads and loads and loads of trees that had fallen down and gone into a petrified state. The colours in the sunshine, this gives you an example, were fantastic. And it just felt like marble. We were definitely told not to take any petrified wood pieces. It was a very naughty thing to do. And there were even stories of quite threatening things, really, about, you know, bad luck will come to you and stuff like that if you do take anything. We wanted to just buy some actually in the shop, but there wasn't any available in the shop to buy for the small bits that we needed until later on in our journey, where we managed to get hold of some. So this is us by one of the trees that had fallen. This is Kath playing around with me. I said, can you just lower your head there? And I took a photograph of her as if she's in the jaws of the dinosaurs, because remember, this is the Jurassic period. You know, this is when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and they had lots of dinosaurs and parts of them in the museum and the shop before we went in. So yeah, look at this landscape. It felt like a moonscape to me. It was just so different from anything we'd experienced before. And we were very grateful to be taken here. As soon as we set off, the bird kingdom was with us all the way. And I particularly am very aligned really with the air element, and so birds are very important to me. And we were followed loads by lots of crows, but ravens. The ravens were just with us the whole time. Michael decided to show us where he called this a petrified wood bridge. And you can see in that photograph the big, huge expanse of plain behind, which would have all been forest. And this was the first point that we saw the first portal. So we were just mooching around looking for the petrified wood. And over in the distance, in the middle of this plain, was one rock that sort of caught our eye. And it was definitely a portal. So I'm clairvoyant and clairaudient and clairsentient. So basically I could see the energy that was coming through. It was like a beam of light, if you like. The easiest way of me describing it is a beam of light. There's a very big difference between vortexes and vorti and portals. Portals are like, you know, we talked about gateways earlier. So portals are very much like passageways through to gateways through to of energy that's through to different dimensions of time and space. So if you like, this could be a highway of information, of beings, of energy from one place in the universe to another, and you could literally see it. It was just so sparkly and so strong. The earth energies were so strong with portals there. So it was very blue skies, as you can see there, with some clouds, and there was no shadows on that land. So if you see here, you can see very little shadow, no shadow. And so when we were looking at this, there was no shadow. And so I asked the spirits and the beings that be, I said, this feels kind of like, cosmic portal, but could you confirm it for us, please? And the shadow that you see before you sort of came in just a few minutes of time, and it is actually a 5-pointed star. So to us, that was confirmation that it was from the star system. So yeah, we took it as that, and we were very grateful for it. And we did some blessings there, and then we moved on. So this was the actual point, the rock that was in the middle of that plain, and we drove by it later. And you can see the clouds there producing that lovely star system in answer to our query. Was it an answer? Was it coincidence? I personally don't believe in coincidence. Everything's a synchronicity to me. So that was beautiful. We went past some different, again, geology, and these are called the teepees. And then we had our first experience of petroglyphs and pyroglyphs. So you can see the black on the rock, and the next photo should show you. Yeah. So we zoomed into to what was there on the black, and this. Look at this. Just have a good look and see. There's stories upon stories upon stories. One of the names of the ancient people we saw as road signs and as explanation around the place was Anasazi, and it means like ancient enemy. So we were quickly introduced to that. Was like, you don't say that anymore. That's kind of a naughty word. And that we were then used, we needed to use the words in replacement of that as ancient pueblos. So this brought me back straight away to Serafina and the Mexican link that she talked about. So ancient pueblos are the people that actually are believed to have made these signs. So we're talking 1200 BC here, there or thereabouts. And there are still many scientists, many people studying these signs and working out what the language is and what it all means. We saw those spirals a lot actually whilst we were out and about. So after our first introduction to that, the reason I wanted to go to Petrified Wood, because in passing before we arrived, Michael had mentioned that there were houses made of petrified wood, which I just couldn't get my head round. So this is actually a house made of petrified wood. He did say there was a better example of that for anybody else that's out that way and going for a look, but it was closed for renovation when we were there, so we got to see this one. It's huge. And also this was our first introduction to a kiva, and a kiva is a place that we often saw them as being places where they were hollowed out in some sort of way, where a lot of the sacred work would be done. So yeah, so you can see all the different walls in this ancient house. Look at that petrified wood forest. Can you imagine it in the Jurassic part? And then, as if that's not enough, we then went over to Hubbell Trading Post. Now, Hubbell Trading Post has been operating since 1800s, uninterrupted, as trading with all of the tribes in and around that area. So it's still the same doorway, which you see here. And this is one of the fences outside where there are a couple of horses stabled. And we thought we'd show you a few photographs that we took whilst we were in there with permission. And these are baskets. Now, basket weaving is just amazing. It's really, really, really amazing. We were very... what we'd done on our first day, when we'd actually had our circle, we then went off to the Herd Museum. So the Herd Museum is a very famous museum in Phoenix, and it has wonderful examples of the many, many different crafts that the Native Americans are known for. So the Navajo are very, very much known for their tapestry and rugs that they make, as well as baskets and various other things. And the Hopi are also known for their basket weaving, and they're also known for making katsina dolls, which are extraordinary, and pottery as well. So we went on this wonderful tour actually at the Herd Museum, and rather than show you loads and loads and loads of photographs, which didn't come out that well because they were obviously through glass cases, it's just as well that you actually just go and look up the Herd Museum. And I've got a book that we actually bought when we were out there called Home. This one. Ta-da! And I thought I'd just show you a few things out of the book if you bear with me, because these are all from and kept in the Herd Museum. And just to give you a little example, because they are better than the photographs that we actually took. As an example, so you can see the baskets on the roof of the Hubbell Trading Post there, and this gives you an example in the book of some of the different designs that the Hopi tribe have made with their baskets. Okay. The Hopi are very much known as well. They have what they call mesas, which are sort of like little hills, mountains within the big valley plains. And there are still old Walpitha village where they still live 1,000 years, 1,000 years of uninterrupted living there. And they have creation stories. Each of the tribes have creation stories or emergent stories, and part of the history really to do with the Hopi tribe is something called katsinas, and katsinas are the spirits that live in the 4 directions around their land, and often spirits live in the San Francisco peaks, and these spirits come down to the villages and they visit the Hopi children, the Hopi people, and they visit with benevolent love and protection and power. So here is one, which is the Niman ceremony. Hopefully you can see that as a painting. And these are some of the Katsina spirits that have come down to offer prayers and gifts to the children of the Hopi land. And so many Katsina dolls, there's a cloud spirit there, many Katsina dolls are made in their images, and I would recommend that you look them up, because it's probably difficult for you to see them this way. But hopefully you can see some of those. And they're just amazing. They're really different faces and really different clothing, and the stories behind them are just mesmerizing and very, very interesting, and tied into the emergent stories and the creation stories of how the beginnings of time worked. The Navajo have their own creation story, and I thought this was an amazing picture of it, so hopefully you can see that. And that's one of the 5 worlds, so that's showing a creation or emergent story by the Navajo put to tapestry of the 5 worlds. And the Navajo are very, 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 very famous for their rugs and tapestry. I just wanted to show you this one as the last bit out of the book. Look at that one. This one is a very famous one, which is to do with the 4 sacred mountains, and the zigzags are all about storm. So 4 sacred mountains and storm. So yeah, very interesting. Do look up the Heard Museum. Better photographs than we can show you here. Here's some more examples of the Hubble Trading Post of the various items that they make. So these are really original Indigenous people art, guaranteed to be made on reservations. So this, yeah, that was a load of rifles which we were not allowed to pick up and use. And this is some of the jewellery. Some of that jewellery is made by Navajo, Hopi and Zuni tribe. Silver and turquoise and coral and jet are really big important stones there, because they're representative of the north, south, east, west directions and the elements. Oh, this is one of the rugs I totally fell in love with. It was representative, as my birds again, it's representative of the Tree of Life. It was $3,500, so a bit beyond my reach at that time, but I'm looking at manifesting that one. I'm just going back to that. When you think that takes somebody over a year to make, it's nothing, is it? Absolutely glorious, just amazing. So this is outside in one of the barns, and then you can have a little look in. They've left it with all the a lot of the original and old items. And then we moved on to Canyon de Chelly. So this was our first gateway. Remember, we talked about gateways. What we'd organised was that we'd have this wonderful sunset view. And Michael was very keen to show us, and that's why, just look at it. It was absolutely breathtaking. You just can't see from these photographs, you know, the scale and the depth that we're looking at here, but it's just breathtaking and awe-inspiring. You'll have to take my word for it. These trees on the bottom of the valley floor are cottonwood trees, and they are extremely tall, you know, a couple of 100 feet tall. So that gives you some sort of idea of what it is we're looking at. Okay, this is called Spider's Rock. Now, in many of the traditions, Spider Woman, who lives on Spider's Rock, is a very powerful feminine deity. And she's linked actually with Isis. The Hopi say it's like the Isis of the Hopi world. So this canyon is very important to both Navajo and Hopi people. So this just gives you it looks to me like it follows the river's pathway, although the next day we went on the valley floor. Water was not apparent there, really, just empty riverbeds. So this is the sunset. So this was our first sunset out on Navajo land. And we just loved this beautiful, the way the sunlight just caught the golds and the reds in the rock. I think it was called vermilion glow. Michael will tell me if that's right or wrong later, I'm sure. And you see how crowded it was, guys. We had it all to ourselves. This is sunset on our first day. There's Belle in contemplation. Colours were outstanding. You can see in the middle there you've got the turquoise from the sky, and then all of these lovely pinks, and it was purples and oranges and reds and golds. We ended up staying in Thunderbird Lodge for a few nights. That was our on Navajo reservation land. As mentioned earlier, we decided that we'd really like to go on a Jeep tour, and these were the Jeeps. And we took a couple of these out to see if we could get down on the valley floor of Canyon de Chelly and really get some wonderful information from the Navajo guides who live there about how it is and what life is like today, as well as in the ancient days. So as you can see, the ground there is very, very, very sandy, hugely sandy, because it's all made of sandstone. And we had two Navajo guides, obviously, who were our drivers, who were very, very warm, very welcoming. They were very much open to letting you know how they lived and today and how they've been brought up. Our guide was telling us that he's been brought up really by his grandfather and his grandmother, and they were always saying, you know, always welcome people onto our land with open heart and open mind. Feed people if you have any food, and welcome them into your home. So as guides, they were acting in this way and they were following their traditions. So the ancient Pueblos who lived here, who built homes here in this valley floor thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, left many signs. They some of the signs are thought, like when they see the spiral, to say I've left the area and I'm going in this direction or that direction. Some had all sorts of different meanings, but you can see here like a positive print where they would paint things on their hands and leave a print, and also where it would be carved in, you can see on the bottom left hand side. And they call this positive and negative ways of leaving signs. And there you can see some more in a sort of like a cave. Looks like they're actually riding on ponies at this point and after the deer. So here we start to try and get some sort of idea of the size of this stunning, stunning, stunning canyon. It just felt so amazing. You could really feel the deep history of ancestry there, of ceremony. This is us not knowing which way to point to take our photographs. Here's the first sighting of one of the dwellings of your ancient Pueblos. So they do reckon the people then were smaller than we are now physically, just by the openings of the windows and doorways. And there are actual almost steps like in the rock of how you can see they would get up and down. So this was taken to try and give you some idea of size of the canyon from the Jeep. It's Michael, always with his phone, taking a lovely photograph of us. So thank you, Michael. I loved this bit. I really liked this bit. It was like the Jeep came right in, right next to this overhang of sandstone. Just look at the colours. Fantastic. Another dwelling. What do you think? This was an example, we were told, of when the ancient ones were starting to actually make pigments of colour from the plant kingdom. Oh, we took some photographs of some of the flowers and the plants. This one, I've forgotten the name of, sorry, but basically it's a hallucinogenic and is often used by the shamans in the area. And you just have to lick a leaf, apparently, not eat the whole thing, to get the hallucinogenic properties. And this is Nick's photography. Isn't that lovely to share with you? It's quite interesting how many stories we feel that would have been. So this was right at the end of one of the sides of the canyon, and there were some people, some Navajo people living down there, and a lot of their land was sort of fenced off, and they were growing corn. And this particular family were selling their jewellery, and as it says there, fry bread, sodas, anything else that they thought people might need when they were visiting there. And we were visiting that area because it's very well known, that part of the canyon apparently, and it's known as the White House. And this was one of the hogans that we spoke to you about earlier. Hogans are, basically we saw the first one actually in the Heard Museum, and they're usually about 8 sides, and they've got a centre point where there would have been a fire. So these were original buildings that people would have lived in generally. But nowadays, what they use them for is for sacred purposes. So the door usually faces east, and they're used for sacred purposes. So you'd often find some dwellings around the place and then one hogan, as if that was going to be shared by people. Happy horse. We saw loads of horses just roaming by the sides of the roads. This particular hawk kept following us, our particular Jeep, all the way into the canyon, all the way out. And then as soon as we left the canyon itself, it disappeared. And we were extremely fortunate that the other Jeep members actually saw a bald eagle. And this is one of the most auspicious signs for the Navajo. So much so that the Navajo guide stopped, got out of his vehicle and did a blessing there and then. He touched the earth. He used the earth over himself as if smudging, and he did a great thank you blessing there and then. And our ladies followed suit and joined in. So great auspicious sign. So we took that as a real blessing, because the Navajo said they hadn't seen one since last November, and this was in September. So we took that as a big deal, as they did too. So this is our group standing in front of the White House ruins. And again, we wanted to share with you the different types of life out there. Lizards is one of them. We saw lots of lizards. Just look at the root system of these cottonwood trees. This is our lovely Carol resting in the shade after the journey. This is one of the snakes we saw along the way. Our guide said this is called a water snake. It will show you, if you follow it, where the water is. So I'll just go back to the snake for now. So how amazing is that? We had such an amazing time, and that was just in our second day with Michael. Okay, so hope you enjoyed that bit. We're going to go on now next to where the Navajo, it's their home main territory. So it's the head office, if you like, the capital of Navajo territory. And we were invited here by Donovan, and he wanted to show us around the council chambers and introduce us to what's actually happening now for the Navajo people, as well as the history. And we were extremely honoured to be invited to go to the powwow. It was the 71st annual gathering of the Navajo tribes from all the regions of the Golden Circle, and they would meet in different places on the land, and they would gather to celebrate their differences, which is amazing, and go into little competitions with each other and all sorts of things. And we started off at Window Rock. I think you can see why it's called that. And we particularly chose this photograph because there's some youngsters up there up waving and saying hello. Very high. So this is Donovan. He explained he's wearing a traditional piece of his mother's jewellery, and it's only on high honour that he would actually wear that. And again, lots of turquoise and coral beads. So this is inside the main council chambers, and this is Michael and Donovan, who are buddies and have worked together in the past, and the Great Seal of the Navajo Nation. So here you have the different colours, the white, the yellow, the black and the blue, as you can see, of their 4 sacred mountains. Wonderful. This is Window Rock without the youngsters there. So Donovan took quite some time with us, which we're thankful for, to explain, as I say, the history. And it's great to hear that they're coming together now to look at their own trade and their own businesses, and making most of the minerals and the riches of their land. So we have great hopes of keeping an eye what happens there, and great love to the people. So this was the powwow. This was where all the dances were taking place, where all the competitions were taking place, where all the different tribes had come together, and we were just amazed to be there. And Donovan and his sister were there as well, and yeah, just look at these outfits. Just look the amount of work and dedication it must take. That one I loved. How colourful. I found that one quite powerful. Stately. Serene. So this was the bird dance as we were going to dusk. The ladies were out doing a bird dance. Just look at the... Yeah, so I think you can see here how beautiful these costumes were. Donovan explained that basically what there was around in this circle, there were lots and lots of different drummers, and for each event and dance that was taking place, it would be one group of drummers that would drum their beat. And he explained that one of his relatives dances a lot in these competitions, and she just takes great joy if she gets people tapping their feet, which we did, because you just can't stay still with drumming like that. And yeah, so for each one there would be a competition in itself, really, between the drummers. But Donovan said also that there was a little competition going on between the dancers and the drumming, because obviously the drumming would set the pace and the dancers would need to keep up with that. And yeah, it was stunning. So this is one of the drums. They had them covered up because it had been raining that afternoon. It's on a very old drum here. I know this is blurred, but I wanted to keep it in because they were waving their shawls and their around, and it was definitely in a bird-like way. So one of the things we do have is a short video of, it's just 2 minutes long, 2 minutes 22 seconds, of one of the drumming circles. And this is the point that I'd like to introduce that to you. Just fast forward it if you don't like it, but really, if you can imagine, you know, we were standing right next to this, and the singing and the drumming, and the drummers basically all pass round smoke and sage to actually bless themselves, to have a sacred preparation moment of prayer, of intention, of dedication, and they were passing that round before they began. And then one person started with the drumming and the others moved in. And for every time that those particular drummers were taking off, they would be surrounded sort of 4, 5, 6 deep in people. And they gave us permission to video and share this one that I'm going to show you now. So enjoy that. So I think you'll agree the drumming was extraordinarily powerful. It's one thing to just listen to it that way, being right next to it as it's happening live. It just put, you know, hairs right up the back of your neck. Absolutely amazing. So that was a superb experience. So the very next morning we left our Thunderbird Lodge, and this is a picture of graceful Ellie. She's graceful all the way through this whole adventure. And we went to a different part of the canyon this time, Canyon de Chelly, and it's the mother's cave. But Michael wanted to show us how to wear the Navajo blankets. So this is the way the ladies wear them. And that's the same blanket, it's just reversed. And then this is the way the men would wear them. So that was cool. That's us lot. Again, very crowded place. Nobody there. Okay, I'll take you back one for a moment or two. So from this place, we actually could see down into what was called Mother's Cave. And it was another example, like we showed you earlier, the White House of the ancient Pueblo people. And it's very, very large. And Michael was saying that people are still discovering in Canyon de Chelly these ancient houses. They're still discovering them. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? One of the things I wanted to mention before we leave this canyon is the way of gateways. So we spoke about, this was our first gateway. So gateways are like, if you like, if Sedona was the heart gateway, which it was for us on this trip, then we had other canyons like the Blue Canyon and Antelope Canyon and Canyon de Chelly as the other three. So Canyon de Chelly, we felt that morning like we had some members of our group felt that they'd received something, other members felt they'd cleared something, other members felt they'd healed in specific ways, others just got a real big buzz from the whole thing. So gateways are, they're doorways, aren't they, into different worlds, different perspectives. So what did you make of it for you? What was your gateway moment? Okay. So one of the things when we were walking back to the car was it was surrounded, this area on top of the canyon, surrounded, as we've said before, with lots of sage, but juniper trees, loads and loads and loads and loads of juniper trees. And what the Navajo people who are still living there do is they live on the valley floor in the summer, and at a certain stage they'll often go to the rim in the winter. They're still using that same lifestyle, and a lot of these trees and berries and various things are used for firewood, used to making things, are used for preserves, anything that you can use them for. But this crazy picture here this was the first vortex I'd seen since arriving. And I don't know whether you can see it from that picture, but what I'm hoping you can feel or sense there is the twist of the way the actual branches are going off. So I got my old dowsing rods out and we had a go at trying to show you how, when I was walking towards it, they were very still, and then it picked up at the end of the vortex, and then it spun in lots of different ways and quite quickly in the centre part when I could reach it, if I could reach it as I was leaning over. So that's what that crazy photograph is. And this one, look at it, amazing tree. Look at the different ways the branches are turned by the actual energy of the earth. Vortexes, they are energy from the earth the scientists can now measure, and they come up and they spin in centrifugal way, and they'll spin one way or another way or both ways at the same time. And they're very similar in a way to our chakra system. The chakra system of the human frame and animals are basically where energy is going out and it's coming in at the same time. And they look like spirals of energy. So yeah, that was fun. This is lovely. There's all the sage by the side of the road, look, and the wild horses just pootling around at the side of the road. Why wouldn't you? This is one of the houses I spoke of earlier, of when it would be potentially used for the winter. This one looked like an all-year one, and huge satellite dish. And then we went a little bit off piece. This wasn't on the original agenda. We were talking about favourite places, and Michael had a favourite place in New Mexico. So we went up and over the mountain. We saw one forest fire, but it was in the distance. And these extraordinary aspen trees as we went over the mountain, because he wanted to show us Ship Rock, which you can see in the distance there. One of our ladies was saying she'd just watched a television program called Dark Crystal, I think, and that's based at this particular place, and apparently it's been used for many movies. But I thought that looked really atmospheric as we were coming over the other side of the mountain. And here it is. This is Ship Rock. And you can see here us standing by a wall of this. And so Ship Rock, what you're actually looking at there geology wise is the inside of a volcano. So it's all the outer edges that have been stripped away, and that's what it looks inside. And then they had lines of walls of what would have been originally volcanic action still standing, which you can see there. So we measured, Roger, and we were looking at the ley lines because we could sense that there were very strong earth energies there. And they were extraordinarily wide, over miles and miles wide, these ley lines. So it was as if this Shiprock was like a centre point, and off that centre went many different pathways, and each of those were convergences of energy. So some of us felt comfortable there, some of us wanted to get out there sooner rather than later. It's one of those things with earth energies, you know, sometimes they just feel fabulous and regenerative and beautiful, and other times they just feel like you want to keep moving through. And it's a very individual perspective. So one of the fun places en route we went to is this place, which is the Four Corners. So these are 4 different states of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico and Utah. And our toes are in the center point where they all crossed over. And in the background, you can see plenty of places where people could actually come and sell their wares. So we met loads of local indigenous people there who were selling lots and lots of yummy stuff. We availed ourselves of a few bits of jewellery and various things. And then we went on to Bluff, Utah, as it says in the sign here. To me, this started to feel really, really yummy. I got a really higher sense of energy here. I got a clarity. It felt more pure. It felt more serene, and it felt lighter in some way, shape or form. And I liked it there. These are the twins. These rock formations of sandstone are just phenomenal. And we stopped off at a place for coffee. It was a well-deserved little walk around there. Just this is like a coffee place, and it was just built so nicely. There was a place there just around the back of the coffee shop where you could go and have a look again at petroglyphs, and then on to the Valley of the Kings. So can you imagine this? Really long roads, some winding, some straight, and these huge shapes of mountains and things in the background, which tribal people believe are deities. Each one is a deity of some description, god, goddess of some description. So Valley of the Kings was very atmospheric, and it carried on being atmospheric to Gooseneck Park. So we loved it here. There was hardly anybody there yet again. These national parks are just fantastic and amazing. And in this photograph, I think you can see how the river just totally and utterly meanders through, and how it's carved such deep, 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 deep canyons. course, there were no safety barriers or anything else, so we could get as close as we wanted, and it was a strong, powerful wind. It was actually blowing towards us, which was helpful. It was really lovely there. It was very, as I say, we'd entered Utah, and it had felt lighter and clearer, and then this felt grounded, as if it was really pulling me into a real appreciation deep, deep, deep within Mother Earth. We were all trying to work out how this had happened. So this was another beautiful zigzag pattern, basically, of geology and stripes that are in that area. And Michael said he thinks many thousands of years ago they've had like an earthquake or something, and some of the land has shifted down, so it's revealed the red earth beneath. So the red is what's underneath the grey. He wanted to take us here to show us Mexican hat. And there he or she is. Isn't it great the way natural formations just end up doing this sort of thing? Now, some of you might recall this. This is a famous scene out of Forrest Gump. So very straight road, and there's the Valley of the Kings behind on the way to Monument Valley. These are the monuments in Monument Valley. You get an idea of scale there from the cars in the foreground. And we were fortunate enough to arrive there. We stayed at Golding's Lodge, which is very comfortable accommodation, again on Navajo territory, reservation land. That was the moon that night. And this is us in the sun as it's starting to go down. So this is sunset at Monument Valley. So we've got a whole set of photographs here for you of the sunset and the sunrise. So at sunset we put out lots of blessings, and Anne instructed us of the fact that the medicine people, the people of the land, would gather lots and lots and lots of herbs at the foot of these three deities and others, and they would give blessings and thanks for these herbs, and then they would take the herbs and use them as medicine. That's one of my favourite pictures, I think. And that one. This was the night as well that we'd pulled some oracle cards earlier as we were going through these major differences in the land. And one of our group had got a coyote card. And that night, it was Carol sitting next to me there. That night, Carol saw, as we were just sitting there quietly on the wall, watching the sunset go down, she saw some coyote just literally walk in front of her. This is our sunrise the next day. So look at the colours. This is us just really wanting to share the beauty of this. So there was a rock nearby that we all gathered for the sunrise, and we chanted a blessing to the earth, a prayer, with lots of thankfulness. So it was amazing to be there at sunrise with so few people around. We felt we weren't disturbing anybody by singing a simple chant and blessings of the land. It was funny, actually. We got to a certain point at the sunrise, and a whole sort of coach came, actually, and offloaded with a lot of Japanese tourist people who all came out and took one photograph, got back in the coach and went off before the sun had properly risen. So the things you remember. What do you think of this? Way to go, Nick. These are lovely. And you can see in the background here of this hogan, a different sort of hogan, you know, not built all of wood. This one's obviously got earth and a wooden door. You can see just the light, can't you? The sunlight as it's coming up, touching the top of the tree there, look. One of the deities. So this is provided again by Michael, a beautiful Navajo blanket. So we did a blessing and we went round in a clockwise direction, blessing the land and giving thanks and asking permission to enter here. Designs are phenomenal, aren't they? And look at the light there of the sunrise. Oh, I'm quite happy. And off we go. So this is inside. So you can see some of how they're built. This is Golding's Lodge. This is there's this kind of like a motel part, and then you get these lodges, which are right next to and tucked into Monument Valley monuments. Absolutely lovely. I'd totally recommend you stay there. Beautiful Navajo reservation part there. So later that day was our second gateway place, which is called Antelope Canyon. Now, Antelope Canyon is a slot canyon, so it's not the ones that we've seen so far. It's underground. And I was told originally it's the cathedral. It's one of the cathedrals of the Navajo. So we were really stoked up about going to this. And when we arrived, there was a Navajo gentleman doing a dance there with hoops. I think it was called the chicken dance. This is where we were waiting a while to prepare ourselves before going into the cathedral, because it's a very popular canyon to go into, and especially that time of year. So we had our slot and we had to go through at a certain time, and with our own guide for our own group called ROC, R-O-C, he said. And so we had a bit of time to actually centre ourselves and set ourselves into a prayerful, gratitude, open state of awareness where all judgments were put aside and love remained inside of us here. So we were full of expectancy and wonder. So maybe if you set yourself those intentions before you travel this next part with us, so you can have a go. So there's Rock just behind me in the blue top and black baseball cap, who's our Navajo guide. I absolutely love this one of Val. It's just what we were all feeling. So this is Antelope Canyon. As I say, it's a slot canyon, so you have to go right down many stairs to get down there. And the colours are phenomenal. So the pictures you're about to see have not had any filters at all put on them whatsoever. They're just literally as we took them. And we have a lot of them. So it's really hard deciding which ones to share with you. Again, you can look this up. So that's called the Lions. As we were going through, so Rock described it and told us that his people have named part of the canyon from the animals and the world that they can see within the canyon. So that's Lion Canyon Place. That's the turtle. You see the turtle face? Excuse this shot of everybody's back, but I wanted to show you because on the left of the ladder, can you see the impressions in the sandstone? So it was only a few years ago these ladders were put in. Previous to that, it was a rope and those footholds. So that's the way it would have been. And in original times, there wouldn't have been any ropes. It would have been you get up and down that way. So I asked about why it was thought of as a cathedral, and it's because it was a kind of place of sanctuary. A lot of their people hid here safely. We saw many faces, felt many differences. I was just completely and utterly happy. No filters, guys. These deep purples, these deep golds. Exactly as it was. That one is just trying to give you an idea of scale of where we were. So the light above is ground level. As you can see, these ladders were quite handy to get out. So we started to leave. The rock took us safely through. And can you see on the far left-hand side of that picture that Kath is just emerging out of the slot canyon? So you could have been anywhere on that plain and you would not have known that was there. So the Cathedral of Sanctuary, Antelope Canyon. That one has never left any of us. Now there's Canyon de Chelly. Some of these things, it's just phenomenal. So I hope from those few photographs you can pick up some of the love, some of the beauty. There's lots and lots and lots on the internet for you to explore if you want to pick up some of that feeling from it. But we absolutely had a fantastic time. So we popped back into the car then, and we were taken over to our next place of stay. So we were in Utah and we were staying at Lake Powell, a huge man-made lake. And you can see in that picture there the dam that was built to fill this part of the world. And it was such an amazing experience for me coming across a huge body of water after being in deserts upon deserts upon deserts for so long. So this was very, very pleasant. We were out of reservation land now, but these were our apartments, and it was kind of like our view from our rooms. So I had a lovely pathway in the resort and then down to the lake, and you can see some of the boats in the harbour ahead of us there. This is Michael and I having a cup of tea early the next morning. Oh no, that was, sorry, that one was having a cup of tea before we went off to have sunset at Horseshoe Bend. We'd looked forward to this for a long time because it's the only acute angle that goes around in such a way of the Colorado River. So here you can see the marina. And this is sunset at Horseshoe Bend. So I don't know if you remember Gooseneck Canyon that we showed you earlier, but I thought it was very, very similar to that. It's Chris. This one was really crowded. This is the only one we went to, which it was really, really, really crowded for the sunset. It was stunningly beautiful, but most of us preferred Gooseneck. But look at it, absolutely fantastic. Carol and Ruth enjoying it. Ah, lovely. So we had a really good night's sleep there. There were plenty of pools and things for us to use. And the next day, we went on a boat ride across the lake, which was fantastic. And the scenery as we went along on the boat was wonderful. And we had lots of commentary about what we were looking at and the different strongholds the Native Americans have had there. But what was really lovely about this is we were on a journey to Rainbow Bridge. Rainbow Bridge is on Navajo land, and it's one of the bridges with the old stories of, there were quite a few stories that we noticed which had twins in them. So the twins would come along and they'd have a fight with each other, or they'd be fighting off a big monster, and one of them might get slayed and then turned into rock, and one captured or one freed. There's quite a lot of stories like that in the traditions. I thought the way the light and the sunshine played on the differences of the rock was amazing. And this one is just showing you that we're about to enter into the narrow opening to get this big boat through. There you go, you can see. Now, we were apparently very lucky because the reservoir was higher than it has been in the past, and sometimes you have to walk about 8 miles because the water's so low to get to Rainbow Bridge. But for us, it was just a mile, so we were well taken care of. I just really love that. It's just like What is the boat doing there? Go with me on it. So we followed the river, meandering path. You can see someone in the distance there, and again get some of the scale. The scale of these places is just beyond describable. And that is Rainbow Bridge. So Rainbow Bridge is a natural phenomenon where the water has carved its way through over millennia. But we found we got most of the way there, and we just rounded the corner so we could see the bridge. And over on the right-hand side, there was a real presence of energy. And one of the old stories is that is another gateway where you're supposed to stop and ask, can you enter here? So we did that. We asked if we could enter here. And we did, and look at it, it's phenomenal. We also noticed that through the bridge in the mountain range behind was a very, very, very strong portal. You can just see it center to the left through the bridge. That was a dimensional portal, so that was definitely to a different time and place. So as you can see, the water hasn't made it this far up. And this is our return journey back to the boat. There's just light on the water, which is mesmerising. And there was the boat. So Lake Powell, lovely. It was a really great place to process a lot of the things that we'd done. And many of us found Rainbow Bridge more moving than we anticipated. It felt a very powerful place, certainly to me. And a couple of the girls went off further ahead of us and ended up going to the base of the bridge. And they found dinosaur footprints. So really cool. So after a stunning time in Lake Powell and being within the Rainbow Bridge and all that that meant to us, because it was very moving and very powerful, we moved off early the next day to spend a day with the Hopi on Hopi territory. Bertram is somebody that I'd contacted some time ago and is well known for giving guided tours to many university bodies as well as esoteric groups. And I thoroughly recommend you look him up. All contact details for all of these people are below the video if you're interested. And the first place he took us to was to meet up with a friend of his called Ernie. And Ernie was from the fire tribe. He's like a warrior fire Massa tribe. And Massa is the one of the main characters, if not the main character in their creation story. And yeah, he was from that tribe, which is interesting. And Bertram's from the Corn Clan tribe. So we had an amazing time with these gentlemen. And the first place they took us to is this one, Coal Canyon. And Coal Canyon is where they mined their own coal. But also it's, I have to look up exactly what the figure is. It's bordering Hopi and Navajo land. And it's on the edge of a 120-mile wide painted desert. So the rest of these pictures is the painted desert. I think you can see why, really. There's Bertram in the light in the middle. And then we went on to Blue Canyon. Now, Blue Canyon was the place and the gateway I'd been most looking forward to being in, because I'd had a vision when I was a lot younger. A dream, if you like, a waking dream. And I'd seen a tribesman, an elder of a tribesman, walking up a landscape like this, which was blue and it was white and it was red stone and very different shapes and looked very alien to me at that point in my life. And he was walking up the side of one of the mountains and he removed, like he opened a doorway. He rolled some of that doorway back and he made sure all members of his tribe went through this doorway, and I got a glimpse of what was through the doorway, which was definitely a look of paradise. So coming from desert into lush green, lots of water, sunshine, so on and so forth. So happy sounds, really golden light. And then when everybody had gone through, he surprised me because he closed the door and he was left on his own. So I had a very human reaction of, oh, but he went skipping and whistling down the pathway. And he looked to me and he said, one day they'll return. And so when we were setting up this adventure, that memory came back in full force, and his face was very much closer to me. And he said, help them return. The time is now for them to return. So I was told and guided for my bit of this whole journey that when we got to the sacred ground of the Hopi lands, of the Blue Canyon, that there would be a place there where we could do a ceremony for peace on earth and for unity consciousness to come back, and for the paradise that is actually here, for us to awaken to that potentiality and possibility and start to tune into it. So that's what we did. Sound crazy? Oh, not at all. It's great. So these figures are called hoodoos, and the Hopi people know that there was a time of great drought, and then know that there was a time of great floods, and a lot of their ancestors died in these floods, and they believe that they're in the stone now here, and that many stories can be told. So this is the Blue Canyon. So Bertram took us to all sorts of different places within the canyon to show us the different kind of formations that are there. This is one of his favourite places he took us to because it's really cool. It's really, really, really cool. So when you're in very high heats in the desert, it's such a relief to stand in a cool place. So this isn't just like a shaded place. There was an energy there that was cool. It was very, very cool. Like walking into an open door of a fridge in a hot summer's day. Look at these hooties, aren't they great? Can't begin to describe the energies there. It's quite an interesting passage to actually get permission to get to this place. That's what they call the Egyptian. And there were animal shapes and all sorts of different shapes. So this is where we did our ceremony, and standing in front of Bertram there is what we called our altar stone. And Michael joined in as well. So we had 4 males and 2 ladies in between the males and myself. So it was really beautiful sacred geometry just by the numbers and the people that were there, which were unplanned. Not till that morning did we know we were meeting with Ernie. So sometimes it's just wonderful to look back and know that everything is supremely divinely guided, and we just have to trust in it sometimes and go with the flow. So as with a lot of things that I do, majoritively, they're unplanned and they're totally channeled. So we channeled through a beautiful ceremony of peace. It happened to be 9/11, and we put this out to the whole world. We started within ourselves, which is something you can do for yourselves, is wish for peace within yourself and your friends and your family and your community and your village and your country, and out to the world, and then take it all the way back in. So we did a beautiful ceremony, and what was so touching and so amazing from our perspective was that Bertram, I asked Bertram, would he repeat the words that came through from a sacred source in Hopi language, which he did. So it was just wonderful to hear the prayers said, to hear the intent, to hear the wishes for peace on earth in different languages. And then we finished with a chant, which was for the same purpose. And then Bertram led us in one of his songs for peace on earth and for the spirits to be with us. And it was wonderful because it was so calm and it was so hot and boiling. And then right at the end of the ceremony, as we exchanged in our own languages this sacred ceremony, the wind just arrived and caressed us. Later, Bertram said that was Spirit arriving and greeting us and meeting with us. And, you know, he thought the Spirit was happy with what we'd done. The Spirit of the place was happy with what we'd done. Oh, so that was pretty awesome. So for me, I was looking around for this, like this, the same vision that I'd seen in my dream, and it was over on the right hand side as we were moving through the canyon, and I knew it was over there, but I was told categorically we needed to do it in this place that you see before you here, because Bertram said afterwards that's because that's known as the strongest place for connection with cosmic forces. So, and it had like a domino effect that ran through the canyon, and we hope the world. That's what they call spaceship rock. On the other side of that, there was a shape like a dove, like a white dove, and I pointed it out, and Bertram said he'd not seen it before. And what it really felt to me like over time, it's almost like there's writing on the wall. Not the ancient Pueblos, but something else, and it feels like one language is being shown. And that we'll soon understand. Bertram introduces to all sorts of different plants and what they were used for. And this is us just so happy after the ceremony. We just all felt completely, like, you know that thing when you feel like you've done a good job. Yay. So here's one with Ernie in as well. And Bertram. He took us to some amazing places to show us the ancient writings of his ancient people. And this, wow, we were so honoured. So he took us to Prophesy Rock, which is one of the oldest writings. And it tells the creation story, and it also prophesies what's happening in our world now, and it's all been true and what is to come. And this is like a valley floor here, where he calls us the many waters. So lots of the water people or snake people would have lived here. So that's called Prophesy Rock. You know, the Hopi have like 6 directions. So as well as your north, south, east and west, they have above and below. And a lot of their, and the Navajo creation stories, emergent stories, are talking about underworlds and overworlds and in-between worlds. So it was a very amazing day. Ernie ended up inviting us to go off. We went off, we ate at their local place where people all gathered to eat together. And then we went off to Ernie's place because he had rescued 2 foals that morning. So, yeah, animal lovers. So we went over to his house and he showed us the foals and he gave us some blue corn, which only the Hopi grow. And, oh, God, it was amazing. And he is a silversmith and a jewellery maker, so his links are at the bottom as well. Does some fabulous things. So we all spent a bit of money there too. Before we headed off, finally, to Sedona. So this is your first photograph of Sedona. So those are we're off the reservation land in one way, and yet in another not. Because Bertram said Sedona was originally a place where only shamans were allowed to go. And you can really understand it because there's a beautiful Oak Creek Canyon that runs right the way through Sedona. So it's a very lush, green, fresh water place. And I can imagine after being in the desert for a long time, that would be just like a miracle, really. And so the shamans would go there often to replenish and rejuvenate. So if you think the original people were there to replenish and rejuvenate, that kind of global consciousness belief structure will still be in the fabric of the land. And we were staying at Sunset Chateau there near Airport Mesa, and this was the view I woke up to the next day because we arrived in the dark, and that's Thunder Mountain. Now, Sedona is, oh gosh, it's an amazing place. Many people actually say, oh, it's full of hippies now and new agers and this and that and the other. But I think it's full of people who actually sense the refined energies in the area, the rejuvenation and replenishment that's there, the enrichment that's potentially is possible there. And, you know, it's one of those places where like-minded people gather, isn't it? To explore unity consciousness and what's available. So our first trip there after breakfast and settling in properly and things was to go to Oak Creek Canyon. And you know, it was really nice just to be basing ourselves in one place. Now, we'd said cheerio to Michael, so it was over to just our group. And I really wanted the pace to be a lot slower, a lot gentler, and much more time to process things. So we went to play. Play is a fantastic way of connecting in with energies. And the girls were just so happy just to have some time to sit and be. And some swim. Again, not planned. Just all these lovely happenings that go on. So we connected in with the river energies, and we really, really enjoyed that. And we gave blessings to the elements. And then there are many different vortexes around Sedona, and you can look it up online about some of them, like Cathedral Rock and Airport Mesa, Bell Rock, and Boynton Canyon. They're all to do with the different chakras of the system. So we were staying right next to Airport Mesa, which is solar plexus. Bell Rock is the base one, then there's Cathedral Rock, and then Airport Mesa, and then Boynton Canyon is pretty much from the heart or the throat up. And it's the higher energies. But I wasn't quite sure which one we were going to go on a trail for. So that morning, after we'd gathered in circle to do our sharing and things, Boynton Canyon was the one that really called. Some of the girls had been out early that morning and already walked the trail of Airport Mesa, and it just felt right that we go up to this height. And it's just stunning. The whole area around there is just beautiful, as you can see here. You're warned by many of the signs that you're entering wild country and Dead Man's Pass, and you know, it's really the Americans are very safety conscious, and so they have lots of signs about the best way of proceeding forward. And I have to say, you just need to take loads of water with you because it's just extremely hot. Usual signs that we're looking out for: the clouds, to me, made a swallow bird. I love swallows, they're my favourites. So after asking which way to go, I was still wondering as we set off on our trail, and this came up, and I was like, yeah, we're in the right place, right time, let's go for it. And we did this as like, right, we're going to climb up this little mountain, and we're going to find these vortexes and see how they feel for us, and we'll do so in the most sacred way to us and the most authentic. We'd had a circle that morning that actually owned our own authentic selves, and we were all in different emotional states, different vibrations, and it was like, come on, let's own that, let's be it, let's just be who we are. Okay, so here you can see both female and male energy. And one of the things about Boynton Canyon that's so beautiful is you've got the male and the female called Spider's Rock again, and the male is the warrior energy. And right in the dip in the middle is a juniper tree, which is the center of the vortex. But to be quite honest, the whole of Sedona is a big vortex, so I can totally get it if you didn't pick any differences up, because you're already in a massive, massive area. We met a chap that's well known for playing his flute at sunrise up at Boynton Canyon, And he was so pleasant, and he was talking to us about his idea of how humanity is moving forward, his prophecy of the future, which is very much along the lines of what Enchanted Lands is all about. So we had a really good giggle between us because he was talking our language, and he gave us a gift of a red rock sandstone heart each. These are the pairs that were ready for picking if you wanted to. Nick got this one. What do you think of that, guys? He was putting his feet up because the sand rocks were too hot. So here we find some of the juniper trees and some different vortexes. I've got my dowsing rods out again. I'd broken my hat. My hat had just completely fallen apart. So I was using my shawl as a hat if you're wondering what's going on there. This, believe it or not, is what they call a shaman's wheel. So you have on one side of a shaman's wheel a tree that is very much alive and one that isn't. So it's the difference between light and shadow. It's the difference between life and death. And it produces a circle of energy that when you pass through a shaman's wheel, it's actually balancing. It's for complete balancing. So I felt like the morning session and our walk up to that point had been a major cleansing for everybody. And I felt by walking through individually with knowing this information purposefully and full intention that it was a complete balance for all of us. So that's what we all did. That's one of the views if you look back from the shaman's wheel. So there you can see a better example of it and how we all walked through it. This is the tree in the middle of the vortex on top of Boynton Canyon. Just look at the way that's grown. So we took a moment there to look at the views, absorb the beauty, and just be within our own selves. And then I dowsed for everybody to find out which it was best. You know, all of us some needed more female than male, some more male than female, some needed to do one first, then the other, but we did need to do both in completion of our own sacred ceremony and our own harmony for self. So we cleansed, we'd balanced, and this was an intent to return to full harmony. So some of us went over to the male side and just sat with that male side and male energy for a while, and some to the female side. And when everybody was done in their own time, they started to make their way back down the mountain, down to the valley floor to wait in the shade for the rest of the group, because it's really important when you're doing these things to do it in your own time. Now, we did share that space with quite a few other people. In fact, some of the people had come up to say, hey, what are you doing? And we'd shared that with them, which was all lovely, lovely. This is the view from the female side down into the valley floor. And this is me right at the end. I didn't quite realise, but Nick was down there taking photographs of me, and Anne was round the other side of the female side, and nobody else was there. Everybody had left, and I was just communing and taking that last bit of harmony from the feminine side. And at that point, I wanted to do a big blessing, a big thanks for the whole of the retreat, for being brought here, for the opening of the heart, for it all to be in such a beautiful experience and balance. And there was no wind that day. There was nothing, again, a bit like what we'd experienced in the Blue Canyon. And when I'd completed my own little ritual ceremony of thanks and blessings and prayer, the wind came up, and it came up so much. I put my shawl up above my head, and I had to hold on really tight for it to stay in place. And at that point, I felt like I was flying. I felt like the wind had come round to give me flight, and I offered a song right deep from within my ancestry and our earth connection, unity and oneness. So I sang to the wind, and it felt really good. We saw lots of these up and down the mountain. And beautiful Airport Mesa. It's one of the high places in Sedona, and you can see a fabulous view of Thunder Mountain and the whole of Sedona. There's the Sedona Valley, and this is the sunset, our last sunset of our retreat on our last day. We just wanted to share this with you in closing. The golds that were picked up in the green as the sun was rising and setting was extraordinary. And that's the beautiful sky colours as the sun had just set. So I hope you enjoyed that journey with me. We certainly had a whale of a time, a very interesting time, informing and deepening our consciousness of all peoples. And we decided, all of us, to stay on, apart from Anne, who had to get back to work, but the rest of us stayed on for a little holiday in Sedona, and we stayed at the same place majoritively. And it was just, it was just great to actually have a bit of holiday time after. Some people went horseback riding, some people stayed by the pool, some people went out with new friends to explore the different territories and go shopping and eat at the brilliant restaurants, all sorts of different things. And some of us, Nick met at the chap at Boynton Canyon who recommended a lady who rescued wolves. And when I spoke to her on the phone, she said she lived in a house that was the last place Geronimo stayed in before he actually gave himself up. So we were intrigued and fascinated, and we went to see some rescued wolves. So as a little add-on at the end, I wanted to share some wolf energy with you. That was the den they dug. They had sort of like kennel-y bits to stay in, but they went ahead and dug their den, as one would expect and hope. So some healthy wolves for you there. And this was one of our nights out because it was Kath's birthday. Oh, and last thing, they have 3 main monsoons quite often, and they'd missed the last one, so everywhere was short of water. Like massively, like a bit worryingly, and lots and lots and lots of the forest fires. So we put out a prayer at Blue Canyon for the waters to come if it was the highest good of all concerned. Oh boy, did they come. We had hailstones, huge hailstones and rain on our holiday time, and it freshened up the garden beautifully and the air and the land. And these are the juniper berries, and it's one of my favourites that Nick's taken. Raindrop. These are the comfy areas we could sit in. And yeah, basically bluebirds flying. And we're going to end with this picture, because this is thunder and lightning, huge storm, as we sat outside on our veranda and just really enjoyed the coming of the rain to balance out all of the heat from the desert. So we came home replenished, renewed, educated, more wisdom, more knowledge. Just more. So I hope you enjoyed this adventure. Do write to me below. Let me know if there's any questions. If I can help, I will, or I'll direct you to someone who can. And yeah, look forward to hearing your comments if you write below. Again, guys, if you like this channel, we put something out every single week, then please select the subscribe button and the notification bell if you want to be notified when we put them out each week. And I'll see you all again soon. Soul to soul. Mwah.